How are relationships different as a woman than they were as a young adult?
Everything about that relationship was me trying to be what I thought relationship required while I was totally unaware and not giving to myself. And I think that when you require of somebody else to give you what you don't already know and deliver to yourself, you are destined to fail.
Absolutely.
Red, red wine, red, red wine. Only get better with time. Only get better with time. Red, red wine, red, red wine. Only get better with time. Only get better with time. Only get better with.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to Red Wine Girl Time. My name is Saika Benz, and today I have a very special guest with me. This episode is definitely going to be more so interview style because I just feel like this is a woman that has a lot to say and a lot of value to offer this platform. So take it away. Introduce yourself to the people.
Hi everybody, my name is Siobhan Barrignton. I am 27 years old. I am a nonprofit administrator, so I run a small nonprofit out in New Jersey that works with adults with developmental disabilities. I also moonlight as a therapist, specializing in Black women, Black children, and Black families.
Love it. Siobhan and I actually met through a mutual friend, one of my best friends, Zoe. We met on a girls trip, and it's so interesting that, you know, there's this narrative that a lot of like Black women and girls have difficulty being around like new people, and they don't get along. And I clicked with everyone on the trip, and I was probably the only like outsider. I think
the rest of us had gone to college together.
Yeah,
so I agree.
But I had a blast, and they were amazing. And then Siobhan and I developed our own relationship through that experience, and it's been a couple of years now. It's been like 5
years.
5
Girl.
years. Yes, I miss the days when I could call myself a young woman. But we are definitely women now. I am 29 years old.
And I'm 27.
And if you had to think back to like yourself 10 years ago, who were you at 17?
Oh man, at 17, I was every bit of confused and uncertain, but 100% unassuming. So that was back when I thought I knew everything. And it's crazy because walking into 27, I'm like, I know absolutely nothing, and I'm totally okay with it, right? Like that has been the source of all the adventures, is the constant journey for self-growth. So if I had to tell myself something, I would say acknowledge what you don't know and then get ready for the ride.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
When I was 19, I would say that I was very, very afraid. I was afraid to dream. I was afraid of being different. So something that my RWGT audience may not be aware of unless you follow me on Instagram is that I'm actually a creative. So I've always been that different child trying to be normal. So if I could go back to myself at 19, I would say it's gonna suck anyways. So you're gonna fail anyways. Why not do it sooner than later? Because there's so many things that I feel like I missed out on because I was so afraid of trying.
Yeah.
How are relationships different as a woman than they were as a young adult?
Okay, so I think it's probably necessary for me to provide a little bit of context around this because I was in my last relationship for about 6 years, and that relationship started when I was a young woman, honestly, right? Like right out of teenagehood. I started that at 20 years old, barely, and got out of the relationship when I was 26. So everything about that relationship was me trying to be what I thought relationship required while I was totally unaware and not giving to myself. And I think that when you require of somebody else to give you what you don't already know and deliver to yourself, you are destined to fail.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay, so tell me, what did you think a relationship was supposed to be?
Oh, okay. So I think probably in relation to the first question, what I should have explained is that I am in fact a perfectionist. 100% to a fault, though. So I completely understand and sort of feel what you're saying when you say, hey, I came from a place or a family that wasn't necessarily ready for all that I was and all that I embodied. No fault to us, right? Like, I mean, I'm also West Indian, so I like, you know, it's a thing. And we're sort of taught from a very young age that you just ride the line and you do what you're supposed to do because that's how you reach success. And we know how to hustle. It's in our blood, right? So nobody ever said, hey, hustle in the direction that serves you. You know what I mean?
That on a shirt.
That part.
Hustle in the direction that serves you.
So nobody tells us that. So we don't hustle in a direction that serves us. We hustle in a direction to serve others. Whether it's an employer, whether it's a man, whether it's friends, whether it's family, we learn to serve other people. And so what I learned in that relationship is that I spent years serving. And not necessarily that anybody asked me to. That man who I love him to this day. He did not ask me to serve him. But that's what I thought relationship was. I thought that you make it look good and you make it look perfect and you make it look easy and you endure everything. And to then come out of that and be 100% uncertain of who I was hard. But I think the one thing that I did know was that I deserved to give myself the time that I had so easily and readily given to somebody else. I earned that, and I deserved it. So I think now, being a year removed from it, a year and a half removed from it, my entire mindset and my view on dating is so different. And I think it's because I spent a lot of time just dating myself. And I think when you spend time loving on yourself, and you know, people talk about the end and breakups, and you know, then you're gonna see who you really are and you're gonna see how hard you are to manage and stuff like that. I mean, I guess. But I think I also realized how absolutely bomb I am. Like, just beautiful inside and out, and how lucky anybody is to have me in their life, and how lucky I am to be me.
Yes.
And what it requires to value me, even in the moments where it's super hard, right? Even when it's lonely, and even when it is uncertain, that we owe ourselves kindness and the grace that we give to other people. And I think that colors my experience dating now. And you know, we've talked about this a little bit off air, but like, you know, now I approach relationship totally different, because I don't really know if you deserve me. Like, okay. And that's not me being big-headed. That's me understanding that I think we should all walk around with that. You know what? Men easily walk around with, you might not deserve me, okay?
But what's so funny about that is that my friend sent me a clip of B. Simone talking about my same reaction. But it's B. Simone talking about how women have these lists. This list and this whole requirement of what a man needs to be before they're able to date them. However, women are not embodying those traits themselves. And I was like, okay, great message, wrong messenger.
Right.
Because I'm like, you scream and holler about wanting to be in a relationship 24/7. Great message, wrong messenger. But I think the difference in that, and even in that moment where I'm instantly ready to reject it, is that men become who they want to be for themselves.
Yes.
And that's actually like the foundation of this show, and why I created like Red Wine Girl Time, because it's important to me for women to start understanding that they are the most important thing in their world. I always explain, I was like, I have this theory about why married women cheat more than married men. And it's a tough pill for women to swallow. I was like, women cheat worse and we cheat the most. And it's because from the moment you're born, your identity is in relation to somebody else.
Absolutely.
As a woman. It's not like that for guys. you're somebody's daughter, you're somebody's sister. God forbid you be somebody's big sister before you're old enough to really understand your role in your own life.
Yes.
Then you want to be somebody's girlfriend, then you want to be somebody's wife. And so the journey, to me, in my experience and in conversation with women who cheat, it's that you spend your whole life thinking that fulfillment comes from another person.
Yeah.
And then you get that. You get this picture perfect marriage, you get these beautiful kids, and to you something is missing. And the thing that's missing that we don't understand is that what's missing is a sense of identity and a sense of self, which men are granted through things like sports from a very young age. So they're challenged and they learn teamwork, and those things don't have to do with anybody else outside of their personal development. If your little boy is angry, put him in a sport so he can channel that anger. You know what I'm saying? If your little girl is angry, she got an attitude problem, and you need to check her attitude.
Absolutely.
Because of how she's behaving is affecting other people. So it's so interesting that you say that, because to me, I think the dynamic between a man and a woman is that men are self-serving. And while it's not natural to women to be self-serving, that discovery of self that you're talking about, it comes through putting yourself first, which is identified as being self-serving and called selfish.
Absolutely. And I think what's difficult with that, and I think I sort of ran into this when I was in a relationship as well, is that we almost punish men for it, right? You know, we punish them for exploring their options or exploring themselves or not wanting to be in a relationship the moment that they turn 17.
Right.
You know, we punish them. And then 10 years later, unbeknownst to us, we're like, oh, y'all robbed us of that. Society robbed me of that. I think we have a responsibility to do better for our daughters, to teach them different. But I don't think that we punish men for that, right? I think we have to stop doing that.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that when you get into a space of blame and make it a gendered thing, you start to put two groups of people that are ultimately meant to be together against each other.
Yeah.
Right? We're not supposed to be at odds.
Yeah.
You know, you should be able to explore and I should be able to explore. And I think, like you said, our objectives are different at that time.
Right.
So then we are at odds. We feel like we're at odds because we're missing out on something because they don't want to give us something. I heard somebody say that women control sex and men control marriage.
Huh.
Yeah. And I thought that was so interesting because if you look at the dynamics between a teenage girl and a grown adult woman that wants to be married, it is like they are two totally different polar opposite planet people.
Yeah.
Because when we are young and we start to know we're cute, right before we get all that insecurity and we're not really sure, like right before we are like, oh, you may not get none today. We don't even know what that means. I'm 16. I know nothing. I know not what that means. Okay. But there was a different power that came with that.
Yeah.
And then pile on the insecurity and then recognize we almost turn over all of our power to men to get to this space of where they get to wield this, like, are you going to get a ring? You might not get a ring. You better act right or you're not going to get a ring.
This is kind of like a pop culture episode, honestly, because there's so much has happened in pandemic, and I guess we kind of just got to sit down and enjoy life outside of ourselves. So there are two things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about Jasmine Sullivan's album, and I want to talk about Bridgerton. Have you heard Jasmine Sullivan's album?
I have not.
Okay, damn
Is it amazing?
I like her intro song.
Okay.
I enjoy R&B singers, female R&B singers, taking on the conversation of sex more openly. I do enjoy that. However, when we talk about power, I had a lot of trouble getting through the album because the skits in the context of the songs were basically like, one of her songs is like, oh, like he lives with his mom, he don't pay no bills, but that D keep me here, basically, right?
Okay.
They talk about paying a man's bills, they talk about being stigmatized, like, so my thing is that these are things that happen in real life, girls. You will meet someone, the sex is so good it confuses you. That is not everybody's business.
Right.
And the reason why that's not everybody's business is not even about like, oh, keeping things private. It's literally just, we're giving away so much power. if I know that this is the thing that makes me feel connected to you, and as a woman to completely like step into who I am, why would I want to give you that much power? And so the entire album is just about like this toxic sex life, which everyone has their own experiences. That's fine, but you have to think about the power of influence. And so what you're doing is you're telling women that if the sex is good, the sex is all that matters, and there's so much more to a relationship than sex.
Yes.
And if we're talking about how women control sex and men control marriage, honestly speaking, as horrible as it may sound, sex is easier to get than marriage. So if that's what we control, then we have to start taking back our power in that just a little bit.
Absolutely.
So when you make a whole album, I was just like, why are we talking about this? Why are you giving away our secrets?
All the secrets. Why are you giving away?
Why are you giving away our secrets? So I know you saw Bridgerton.
I did.
Okay.
I did. Obsessed. Second time around watching it, we've got some critiques.
Okay.
Yeah.
I started to watch the second time and I didn't finish it. But I loved the historical context. They like did a play on like a lot of like accurate things or like accurate rumors, or well, not accurate rumors, but they did a play on like a lot of like things of history that I really loved. But obviously the Duke,
Yeah.
that's how it's supposed to be. They called Lori Harvey the new Daphne. Yes. So let's talk about that. Lori Harvey has landed Michael B. Jordan. Okay, so now this was a tweet that we kind of talked about, and I want to have a public conversation about it. So it says, heal before having children so your children don't have to heal from having you as a parent. Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's talk about it. So I think that's deep. I think that's important. As a therapist, I think that can only half be achieved, right? I think ultimately, and maybe I may be alone in this, but I doubt it. I think that there is an age that we all get to, probably around like the 23, 24-year-old age, when we start to realize all the things our parents did wrong. And we go straight into the blame game, though. Like, y'all messed us up. You're the reason that I'm like this and I have all these problems, right? It's important. It's a good stage. Ultimately, we generally then start to come out of that and start to give our parents some grace, because we recognize exactly what that tweet said, which is that they have not healed from their trauma.
And they did their best.
And they did their best. And sometimes they were not equipped with the tools to be able to identify what was wrong and how to move forward. What does that mean for us? It means that we have a bigger responsibility, because therapy is all out here. We're talking talk space, like brown girl therapy for black girls, all of that stuff. There's so many resources for us to start having the conversations that we need to have. In addition, our generation is the most educated generation, specifically of people of color, that have ever existed in this country, right? So we learn so many important tools. We learn conflict resolution. We learn how to talk to each other, how to show people that they are valued, that they are cared about. And we don't use that enough to invite people's trauma. You know, I think that there was a time a few years ago where I heard, like, if you're not asking men about their bank statements when you're on your first date, you are doing it wrong. And I would challenge that to say, if you are not asking somebody about their trauma,
then you're doing it wrong.
Then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Because we are made up of our traumas. We are made up of our experiences. And I think that it only becomes weaponized, and we've done it. It becomes weaponized when we hide it and when we find shame in it. But when we recognize and find power in the things that we have survived, whether they be small or big, they have impacted us. And when we start to recognize that, one, nobody can use it against us, but two, it can never be utilized against anybody that comes into contact with us, including our children.
So I I am, again, like I'm 29 years old, I don't have any children, and I think that especially just with the wave of emotional exploitation of women, one of the things that people kind of start nudging at you about is, why don't you have kids, and when are the babies coming, and when are the babies coming? So to be 29 years old without any children, especially raised in the areas that I was raised in, is kind of an anomaly. And obviously for some women, some people can't have kids. I'm fortunate enough at the time being to say that that is not the situation for me. I've just been conscious enough not to bring children into this world until I feel that I'm ready for them. So health things aside, I want to talk about, from your perspective, the importance of waiting to have children and not being embarrassed about not having kids by a certain age.
Ooh. Okay, I'm not the expert on this, because I, like you, at 27 feel the pressure sometimes at, you know, when are you going to do this? When are you going to make this decision? And I think that the more that I have had the opportunity to work with families of color, I recognize the difficulties that come with bringing children into this world and being responsible for lives when you have not fully dealt with your own experiences and your trauma. And I recognize how you can impart that on little beings, because that's what children are, right? They're little humans. You know, and it's funny, I will, you know, share sort of confidentially, like, you know, I was I'm a therapist, and I worked with a young girl. She was probably around 7 years old, and she used to come into therapy. You know, she had ADHD and such, and, you know, at one point mom was like, you know, she will not sit down, she speaks out of turn, she doesn't care about what people think, and, you know, she'll just talk over you. And I don't think that mom recognized until the end of the 45-minute session that this session was for her daughter, and she spoke the entire time. She didn't acknowledge that her daughter had anything to say. She interrupted. I don't think that we recognize sometimes that children mimic our behavior so closely.
They do.
You know, and when I think about my parents, my parents had me in their late 20s, right? So every behavior, I can link things back directly to behaviors that my parents have. And we talked about that 23, 24-year-old age where you start to identify all the faults in your family and your parents. I think that when I got to that grace-giving part, that was the time that I said, oh, it will be my responsibility at some point. Yeah. Somebody's going to be talking about me in therapy at 24, and I hope that they will get to the grace-giving part pretty soon.
Yes.
Because I hope I don't give them too many things to heal from. You know, I hope that...
Because something is going to come.
100%.
That's human.
But it's about being aware.
Yes.
Right? I think that's one thing. You know, I think our parents are not in denial, but maybe haven't had the tools and the resources to be able to explore those things. So in a lot of ways, we have to teach them how they hurt us. And that's psychologically exhausting. But my hope is that we'll be able to come to our children or address our children in a way where they can recognize, even at a young age, that we are not perfect, but that we do our best. Because then I think it makes it acceptable for them to be imperfect and for them to just do their best.
I love that. Wow, Siobhan, thank you so much. Definitely brought a lot of value to us. So my last question for you is, how do we connect with you?
Okay, so this is actually a new project, so I'm excited to share with you all. Thinking back to where we started in this conversation and talking about finding self and finding our voice, I shared a little bit earlier that I am a nonprofit leader, and I do relatively well for myself. So that was really a lot of my work for a long time. And more recently, post-breakup, I went into a direction of really trying to figure out what fills me in addition. So that's when I got into doing therapy again specifically with Black women, Black families. And so my thought process was, knowing how nervous our community is about therapy and how skeptical we are sometimes, what I tell my families now is that if we are willing to just try just a little bit of anything, we can get through it. So with that said, I actually started an Instagram platform or a wellness page that is at Just a Little Therapy on Instagram. And it is a full wellness page that is really intent on connecting people to therapeutic resources and specifically geared towards Black families and Black women.
Well, thank you, and make sure you guys follow, check out the page, engage if you have any questions. I'm sure she is happy to help you or guide you into the direction of someone who
I certainly am.
Unlimited resources, because that is what it's about.
Okay.
That is all for us. Some girls wonder, other girls whine. Thank you for watching Red Wine Girl Time.